After the federal government did a U-turn on using taxpayer dollars to incentivize electric vehicle purchases, several states continue to offer their own taxpayer-funded incentives. Welcome back to the States. I'm Greg Bishop. Officials in California, they say the sale of EVs in California has skyrocketed in recent years, and that's just them getting started. They say the zero-emission vehicles are no longer tomorrow's technology, that they're today's solution. But others point that such vehicles aren't really zero emissions, as the manufacturing process and the mining of materials to make EV batteries and other components can still add to pollution. But officials in California, they say that they've taken a step backwards with the loss of federal incentives that helps people purchase electric vehicles, which is why the state says they are now doing their own state-run program that's being announced. And they say it's very critical. Now, they say that even more Californians will have access to electric vehicles through the first EV program from the state of California. Governor Gavin Newsom, he said he favors choice, but he says California is set to use tax dollars to incentivize that choice.
This is about choice, giving people of our state a choice, but also giving them a head start by giving them this $3,500 incentive for new cars, $1,750 for used cars, for supporting California-based headquartered companies. Thank you to Rivian and Lucid, where no cap in terms of these investments are provided because we want to incentivize. Thank you to Ford for their R&D investments in Skunk Works down in Southern California. That's why I drove in on the Ford, appreciating that they recognize what's at stake.
As to the pushback against incentivizing such purchases of EVs, Newsom criticized oil companies that he said were leading that opposition.
We're on the other side of this debate. We're in the how business. This is about the great implementation. Alternative energy is fossil fuels, an inferior product. And that's why they're so desperate, big oil, the polluted heart of the climate crisis. They're so desperate to hold on to what they've got. And they got a bird in the hand by the name of Donald Trump. And they're squeezing him for everything they got. But we're not going to cede the future, and we're not going to sacrifice our children to those policies.
Note, Newsom talked about companies with headquarters in California. One in particular was Tesla.
Tesla would not exist without California's regulatory environment, period, full stop. It was because of the certainty of a regulatory environment that created the incentives for investors, eventually Elon, who picked up on the original investment, and he accelerated that. And so we want to continue to see that acceleration. And to the extent that the federal government's working to vandalize that mandate, which they are, that will play out in the courts. And we'll see where that process unfolds as it relates to California's authority. And as it relates to the next administration, they'll make that determination in response directly to your question.
But Tesla eventually moved out of California because of other policies placing burdens on businesses. To the critics who say Newsom's rhetoric hinting at telling businesses you didn't build that, Newsom had a response last week.
We're just jump-starting this, but it's ultimately not the state's job to build out that infrastructure, to create the conditions and the stability and the regulatory environment where we can make those investments flourish and thrive.
Now, it's not just California. New York State has given 106,000 electric vehicles rebates between the years 2017 and 2023. Their point of sale rebate between $500 to $2,000 is on eligible new electric vehicles or different types of vehicles, tiered primarily by all electric range and subject to the manufactured suggested retail price. In Colorado, they have their EV rebates, looking to increase those after the federal incentives went away. And at the end of last year, it was announced their rebates were increasing from $6,000 to $9,000 in Colorado for new EV purchases and leases, but $4,000 to $600 for used EV purchases and leases. In previous years, Colorado spent $9 million on electric vehicle rebates for gas, diesel, and other different types of trade-ins. In Washington state, a previous $45 million EV rebate program appeared to be exhausted by high-income earners, and some analysts said that Elon Musk's Tesla was the biggest beneficiary of that Washington state EV mandate program. Now, from 2019 through 2023, Washington state had given 25,200 EV sales and use tax exemptions since 2019. Texas had given over 6,700 electric vehicle rebate credits for a total of around $16 million, and that was just in 2023. Maryland gave over 12,800 EV rebates for a total of $28 million. Again, that was in 2023. Oregon also giving out tens of thousands of EV rebates worth $78 million between 2018 and 2023. In Illinois, they had a $19 million EV rebate program in 2023, and records showed that there were luxury EV models that were parts of that program. But there are new limits on the price of the vehicle in Illinois. Their new EV rebate program that began opening its door August 1st, it gives rebates for vehicles with a selling price not to exceed $80,000. Now, the Illinois rebates are $2,000 for an eligible new or used electric vehicle. There's also income thresholds. Low-income applicants, they're eligible to receive an additional $2,000 for a total of $4,000 in EV rebates. Now, the rebate amount for eligible motorcycles is $1,500. Now, income caps are also being applied to this process in Illinois. Ineligible applicants defined as persons and families whose income does not exceed 500% of the federal poverty line for the current state fiscal year. And that rebate amount for eligible motorcycles, again, remains at $1,500 despite income. Now, the Illinois General Assembly, they did approve for this fiscal year with the no federal funds available for EV rebates. It's going to be state funds, $14 million going to the Illinois EPA for the current fiscal year that ends June 30th of 2027. So that application cycle this time around, again, opened August 1st in Illinois. It's set to close at the end of the year. In previous years, they gave tens of thousands of rebates out in the span of several years. Just in 1 year alone, they had over 3,400 applications with over 3,000 rebates issued, totaling millions of dollars. Now, think about the Trump administration coming in when they said that they're not going to continue going down the road of EV rebates, and they repealed a lot of that. Well, it's led to even some consternation and conflict between the president and Elon Musk, who is upset that the federal government was steering away from tax rebates and incentives for electric vehicles. Despite all of that, in California, Governor Gavin Newsom, he said his state's push, it's going to outlast Trump.
We're past the debate, and we're just trying to hold this together because we've got an invasive species in the spirit of the conversation in Donald Trump in the White House. The good news, he's lame duck. The good news, he's temporary. The good news is California's policies will continue well past his tenure.
Do you have an electric vehicle? Did you get a rebate? If so, how much? And let us know in the comments below if you think taxpayers should incentivize the industry or if you believe the free market should dictate the winners and losers. We'll be right back with more from the States.